Diablo 4 just got its day 1 patch data mined, so we have all the changes that will be happening for day 1. We also gotta talk about a few corrections that developers made from misspoken tweets, and what looks like an additional surprise that's happening sometime today. Also quickly go over a Q&A with Riker. We got a lot to talk about. What's up, World? We're back in the video and we're checking out all things Diablo 4. Okay, so first up, we will jump into those patch notes, but I do think that we should talk about one thing first, and that is that Joe Pipora actually had to correct one of his tweets from yesterday. So I know that I mentioned that the day 1 patch would have been different than the Server Slam patch. However, with Joe Pipora's correction here, from yesterday's tweets it said it will represent the 1.0 build of D4 up from 0.9 that we had in place for the Server Slam. You will see balance changes and bug fix. However, a few hours later, Joe had to correct that tweet where he said, "I spoke in error here and need to correct the record. The Server Slam build was not 0.9, but actually a version of our day 1 build. There will be very few changes between this build and the one players will be playing at launch. Deeply sorry for the confusion." So there actually seemingly isn't a day 1 patch, but there actually is, because we do have the patch notes here, and there was some data mine changes from that 0.912 Server Slam, whatever it was, to now the 1.0 build. Okay, so for some general fixes, we have a general legendary aspect fix, whereas this accelerating aspect critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed by 15 to 25% was changed from 3 to 5 seconds. Barbarian also saw a legendary aspect change called Aspect of the Ancestral Echoes, which that one is a lucky hit while the Calls of Ancient is on your action bar. Damaging enemies with leap, upheaval, or whirlwind have up to a 40 to 50% chance to summon an ancient to perform the same skill. And they've removed the section that says can only happen once every 5 seconds. Seemingly it has to be on your action bar, which maybe it didn't before, and now you can happen more than every 5 seconds. Or at least seemingly there's no limitation there anymore. Now Druid did get some actual skill change, where Cataclysm's lucky hit chance went from 62% to 72%, and the massive storm that follows you went from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. Now for Petrify, which encases all enemies nearby in a stone, stunning them for 3 seconds, but now it's 3.75 seconds. Kind of a weird buff there to do for 0.75 seconds, not just a whole second. The next change is against bosses, the critical strike damage bonus is increased by 50%, but it actually had its duration increased from 6 to 7.5 seconds. Now for Grizzly Rage, shapeshift into a dire werewolf for 10 seconds, but that was changed to 12 seconds, and the rest is seemingly the same there. Now for Lacerate, the shapeshift into a werewolf, become immune and quickly dash. Again, this will be from 10 to 12 times between enemies in that area, dealing up to not 400%, but 500% damage now. Now Rogue also did get a skill change. This was seemingly buffed here. Dash forward and slash enemies for 32%, now at 36% damage. And Necromancer did also get some passive and active traits changed. The passive for Golem, you are protected by Golem with X life that attacks for 17%, now 21%. The Golem shedding corpses as it takes damage has been removed, so it's no longer going to shed any corpses. Absorbs 15% damage you would take and recovers life when attacking. So seemingly there is a damage reduction and a heal in place of that corpse shedding. Now for the active trait, your Golem becomes unstable and taunts nearby enemies, takes 30% reduced damage for the next 6 seconds. That is gone, so it's not going to taunt nearby enemies and it's not going to take any reduced damage for the next 6 seconds. But it will drain the blood of enemies in the nearby area, and it will deal 40% damage, and it will heal for 4% of its life for each enemy drained. Damage and healing received are tripled if only one enemy is drained. And then the rest is the same for that Golem trait. Seemingly we have some buffs all around and some trait changes, but for most classes it was just kind of like little tiny minor buffs. Same for those legendary aspects. We did actually have some elixir changes, but no, they didn't remove the cheat unalive elixir. Essentially all the elixirs got nerfed or a minor buff to them, but most of them got the nerf to either the percentage of the dodge chance, while the critical strike damage got a slight buff of 5% on 2 of the elixirs. Now we do have to talk about that surprise announcement that could be happening sometime today. Rod tweeted out earlier saying, "Hey, at Bacon Faded, are we still teasing that Diablo 4 thing tomorrow night? People are going to be really surprised, so I don't want to ruin it by talking about it too soon, just checking." But we also had a tweet here from Ryan McAfee, who said, "Today marks my 11-year anniversary at IGN. I'm super grateful for what I get to do and the great people I get to work with. I did my first Unlocked on my first day, episode 58, and fittingly, I'll be recording an Unlocked today as well, featuring special guest Rod Ferguson." So maybe the surprise is being hosted there. I'll try to have a link down for that interview, or at least I'll update either in the comments or in the description. I'll put a little updated link for when that interview either drops or gets a premiere link. It is kind of interesting that there will be some sort of surprise thing, seeing as there's a lot of content creators who did get early access. I'm guessing it's going to be something like the hardcore challenge race, something that's outside of the game that kind of entices things. I don't think it's going to be anything added to the game or any of the additional stuff there. Although it could be an additional accessibility option that they've been working on in the background that they finally got working. Although I really don't think it's going to be any updates to the game, seeing as it's probably been all data mined, and this is seemingly the day one patch already installed with the update, or at least with the preload download. Now I will say to note with that preload download, if you did have the server slam files, even though Blizzard told you to delete them, you actually could have saved them and then only had an 8 GB download. If you still haven't preloaded and you're still waiting on that and you have the server slam files, you can easily update, and it's only 8 GB. So go ahead, don't uninstall those server slam files and just update your game, because you'll save yourself 80 GB of download like I had to do yesterday. Now also there was an announcement of the creator program. I know a few people have been asking me about if I'm like on this creator program or if I got put on the list or anything like that. And so Adam Fletcher actually did just drop the creator program for Diablo. The requirement is around 10,000 average viewers, which if you take my 30-day average, I actually do beat that metric. However, they're taking a 6-month metric, and I'm under that by a few hundred viewers. So kind of sad, but if I do eventually qualify and if this thing is here still, I will just go ahead and give this key away, as I've already bought Ultimate Edition, so I was just gonna, if anything, refund it, but if anything now, I'll just give the code away. So check out for that a couple days into launch if my viewership does increase and we do get that more average higher viewer count. Now, Riker had some interesting answers here. We had a question that said, do you think that Diablo 4 is on the right path? I think we can all agree that the potential is definitely there. Riker responded saying essentially that Diablo 4 is a much slower pace than previous Diablos. He's wondering how the community will react with a slower paced game. I'm not exactly sure if that is the entire case, however I haven't really played the game so I wouldn't know. However, there's been several videos out already of people reaching level 100 and being in a level 50 plus nightmare dungeon, so essentially the enemies are level 150, and I'm pretty sure the person that got to level 100 only did it in a couple of days. But I've also heard that Diablo doesn't have this sort of WoW leveling pace, which is much slower, or at least like WoW Classic. Another question here by Wowhead says, are you happy with the balance Diablo 4 is striking in terms of ARPG and MMO elements? Is there something that you would like to not see being implemented in Diablo 4? And he said, I am currently content with the balance. He talked about his love for MMOs like Star Wars: The Old Republic and World of Warcraft, which yeah, I absolutely loved Sweater. Again, he prefaced, I would not call Diablo 4 an MMO, and I wouldn't either. I think it's a shared world experience. Another question here says, Blizzard developers claim that players haven't seen the full picture yet when it comes to endgame class balance. You've played one of the more recent endgame versions of Diablo 4. How does class balance feel overall? He responded with, it's a little tough to say because I have specific builds put together. I thought Druid was weak in the beta. Blizzard gave me a Werewolf Stormcaster build that I loved. The Barbarian endgame felt really solid as well. We have another question here that says, regarding endgame, do you think Diablo 4 is in a good place when it comes to variety of its endgame? Riker said, part of the problem right now is the difference between extremes of player types. It's so wide that it's impossible to make everyone happy. You have players that will play 10 to 18 hours a day and will be done with the game in 2 weeks. Other players will take 3 months and will not be done with half the content. That I foresee some people complaining about 2 weeks if there is nothing to do in Diablo 4. It is a little bit worrisome with the endgame, but we'll honestly just have to wait and see. I'm still going to enjoy my time with Diablo 4. But I am curious on what you guys think of some of the balance changes. Thankfully, Sork was just left alone. But that is about cover for today's video. If you like it, like, subscribe. Until the next one. Dude.